Greetings everyone and welcome to Keeping Up with Papa Life After Work, where we find out how one man manages to keep himself busy, physically active, and mentally engaged after retirement with projects. Today's project, well, we are revisiting our Barbacoa, or as we call it here in the Deep South, a Deep Pit Barbecue. Check it out. Welcome back. Hey, you may recall a few episodes back that we showed you how we built this in-ground Deep Pit Barbecue. Well, at the time, I didn't really have time to go into the process of actually cooking. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, tomorrow we have a very large group of family coming over for a birthday celebration, so we need to cook a lot tonight in this pit. So what do you say? Let's get started. This is heavy. All right. You know, there's a half dozen different ways to build something like this. We happen to copy what was done by our family in California, and this is a large culvert standing on end about 5 feet deep. Actually, it's a 6-foot culvert. So it's almost 5 feet down to the coal base with some dirt and rocks that was added in for, or bricks and rocks, excuse me, added in as a heat sink. So you can actually see here how far down that goes. So this plate, once the coals are ready, that plate goes on top of the coals and it separates the coals from the whatever meat you're cooking, whatever you're cooking. Stops you from having that directly sitting on the coals. A lot of people do that with a wire grate. You can do it with a plate. You can do it with all kinds of things. This is what the family in California did, so I had this built to duplicate their process. Then this one is the cover. And once everything's in place and ready to start cooking, you slide that back over it, drop it in place, cover it up with the dirt, and then leave it for 12 hours. Come back, take it all apart, pull your meat out, and run. First thing we need to do, we need to build a fire. Hey, something unique to the South. We have a little extra seasoning on a lot of our wood. This is called a palmetto bug. Man, tastes like chicken. Here's a question you may have never asked yourself. How do you build a fire in a hole 5 feet down on the ground? It's not like you can just reach down there with a match. Well, we've learned it. There's a pretty easy way to do it, and quite frankly, it uses the word kerosene. However, it also uses the word fat lighter. This is pine fat lighter. I'm not sure you have this everywhere in the country, but the stumps of pine trees around here are just thick with resin. So we'll take and save those. I've got several large stumps of it over behind the shed, and this is how we start a fire. This stuff burns great. So some of this will get dropped down inside, some kindling will get dropped down inside. We'll drop a little bit of kerosene on it just to kind of get it going, and then fire up a piece of paper on it, maybe with a little kerosene on that, and drop it in, and we'll have a fire running. One thing I'd like to mention is you'll see down at the bottom of this, there are some coals left over in the bottom from the other burns. That's intentional. We have two ways to do this when you're done with a cook. One is you can actually just leave it open and it'll flare back up and everything will burn to ash. Or you can cover it and then let what's down there remain charcoal and use it on the next burn. And that's what we've chosen to do. We've got a lot of nice charcoal down there. That's probably about 3 inches thick right now. When we're done, we'll add about a foot of coals to the bottom. All right, let's drop in some fat lighter. And we're gonna put some kindling on top of that. And a little splash of kerosene. Just don't really need a lot. Once that kindling gets going, it'll be great. Kindling and the fat lighter. Let's see if this will burn. There you go. All right, kerosene's catching. We're gonna have a nice fire here in a few minutes. One thing we're not lacking around here is firewood. This is all oak and hickory. Same thing down there, and that's some trash wood I keep. We just burn that in the fire pit. 4 acres here, and 4 acres next door, and next door, and next door. And whenever something comes down, I just cut it up, stack it, and it gets used eventually. Now, inside the fire pit today, as I mentioned, we're burning oak and hickory. Now, I'm not so sure that makes a whole lot of difference because we're not really smoking this meat. And you'll see the way it's sealed in the pan that not a lot of air gets to it, just heat. So we won't be doing a heavy smoke flavor in it, but we won't miss it. It tastes fantastic regardless. You can see it's really starting to flare up now. That fat lighter all caught, and that's where a lot of the black smoke now is coming from. Once that burns down, it'll be the typical smoke that you see from most oak fires, hardwood fires. One thing you need to consider, though, you do need to start this a good 5 hours in advance, maybe even 6, because it takes a while for you to burn enough wood down to coals to have a good coal base. Also, you don't want to put really large pieces of wood in there because they take a lot longer to burn down. So this one that you see over here is just about as big as I'll get. I do have a few pieces larger than that that'll go on, but the bigger ones are going to go on early. Never put on a big piece late. You'll regret it. You'll be standing around for another hour waiting for it to burn down to coals. Notice the bricks here on this disc. These are here specifically so you can set a pan down on top and a level surface. If you didn't have that here, the pan would sit right on top of this and possibly get a hole poked in it, and that would be bad, very bad news. So now I have something I can set the pan on. It's nice and solid. I typically just drop this right down on top with these in place, or drop it down and then drop those on and move them around with the poker. Works really well. About 15 minutes in, here's what we have. I'll continue to feed this for about the next 3 hours. 2 more points you may find of interest. One is that there's a way to speed this up a lot because you can't really get a lot of air down into this thing, so it burns a little more slowly than you might like. If you want to speed it up, give it a boost. Definitely makes a difference. And then second, we're going to walk away and leave this thing for a while. That's not a good idea to have it wide open. So, we have a grate. grates just to keep the pets maybe from getting inside, and children, whatever. If we do get a lot of activity up here, we'll slip that fellow over it, and that will ensure that no one gets inside, falls in. Alright, the brisket is ready to be seasoned. Now, this is actually my first time doing one. I watched several videos on how you go about prepping this, cleaning it, getting the fat off and so forth, and there's no need for me to explain that. You can look it up yourself. But basically there's a lean side and a fatty side. You try and leave about 1/4 inch of fat on the fatty side, and you take off as much of the silver skin and excess fat as you can on the lean side. Now, our local butcher sells a seasoning that he makes up. I've had it before. It's really, really good. He calls it powdered love. He said basically just put this on there so it looks like you dropped the whole thing into the dirt. So he thought maybe it would take about this much for me to get a good seasoning on it. So we're going to rub that rub on good. This is nice and cold right now. Yeah, no, I see what he means by that. Look at that. It does look like I dropped it in the dirt. And he really just said to use the whole bag. So, what I'm going to do. Maybe not actually, because there's a lot left over there. Seems to me like you could probably over season it. But I don't know. I know when I get it from them, it's on there pretty thick when you buy pre-cooked meat from them. Oh yeah, look at that. That's beautiful. I think everybody has their own favorite rub to use. This one to me, I believe is going to turn out fantastic. So I'm doing this about 6 hours early. It's going to go back in the fridge. It'll come out about an hour before we put it in, so it can get close to room temperature before it goes into the pit. I'm going to cook this fatty side up. I watched several videos on this, and nobody seemed to have a consensus about the best way to do it. Most of them were on how to cook it on a pellet grill or a smoker. This is a little bit different doing it inside of the deep pit. I'm not sure it's really going to matter, but my theory is that as that fat melts and renders down, it'll soak more down into the meat if it's sitting on the top. So now we're going to talk about the heart of the prepping process here. So additional items that are needed. Everybody does this differently. People wrap them in paper, people put it in bags, all kinds of different stuff that you see online. I'm doing what the family out west taught me to do, and this is what's involved. First, you have foil paper. The whole thing gets wrapped in foil. Second, you have burlap bags. These need to be soaked, so I'm going to put them in water and soak them here for a few minutes. Third, you have wire. Fourth, you have a wire cutter. So, let's get started on this. So while the burlap is soaking, we'll go ahead with the next step. Now what you're going to do is you're going to actually seal this really tightly with foil, maybe 3 or 4 wraps around it. Keeps all the juices inside, stops it from drying out. It's just a sealed cook that you're doing. Alright, the burlap bags have been soaking for 9-10 minutes. So we're going to try and get this inside the bags. I don't really know how incredibly important this part is. You would think that this would be sealed enough, but the burlap bags do give it some structure to help hold it all together. So let's see. See if we can get that in there. I have found out that burlap comes in different weeds. This is a lighter weed burlap that I got actually at Tractor Supply. So because of that, I'm going to use 2 bags. Now, the next interesting part of this is wire. The reason we have wire is we have a deep pit, and we need to have something we can reach with a hook down and pick this up and get it back out. You'll look at different way pits are built. A lot of them are shallow ones, and you can just reach down with with something else and pick it out. A lot of them are shallow. They're easier to get the cook out. In this case, we're down pretty deep, so we need to be able to reach down and grab something. All right, nice hook. Pick her up and down with that. Next, goes back in the fridge, and this evening, goes in the pit. All right, it's back in the fridge. Quick little cleanup here. We have 3 butts to get ready as well. We'll be doing that in a few minutes. This, by the way, is my garage washer. Don't be concerned. I'm not spilling meat juice on the wife's washing machine.
You're gonna love this, man.
So now, how far in advance of the actual dropping it in do you need to season it?
About, we do it about an hour before, maybe. I mean, there's no real science to it by any means.
And those are totally defrosted.
Yep. Fully defrosted. Ready to go.
All right, so here comes the big boy. Don't you trip and fall, Josh. Is it pretty well centered? Looks good to me.
Damn good. Ball game. You want it on?
Yes, sir.
Go around the edge first. Yeah. You just dump it on there, Zach.
So what's that dirt do?
You're gonna bury it all around.
Okay, so it will leak smoke around the edges and if smoke's coming out, air's getting in.
Okay.
You don't want any air to get in, right?
Right.
So you want it to completely shut down. So the dirt seals it. And after we put the dirt on, get it nice and tight, we'll actually water it down a little bit too, just to make sure it's nice and sealed. And then after that, we walk away until tomorrow morning.
There you go. Just throw it on it.
Yeah, that's right. That's fine. Your biggest deal, obviously, is where the seams are. It can't get out in the middle. And in about 30 minutes, that's going to be hot to the touch.
Yeah. Oh, really?
Will it?
The dirt?
Yeah,
The dirt too?
the dirt.
I mean,
The dirt will be hot.
Also, you gotta wet it a little bit.
It just kind of helps to seal it. You can be generous with the dirt, with the water. All right. Shovel. Go ahead. 3 bags full.
All right.
There you go. Hey, tip of the day. You'll notice that when we pulled the meat out of the pit that we dropped it directly into an ice chest. Why? Well, we weren't serving for another 3 hours, but we didn't want the meat to cool off. We wanted it to stay near the temperature it was at when it was in the pit. An ice chest does an excellent job of that. Give it a shot. It works pretty well. Let's talk a little bit about cook time. How long should your food stay in the pit? Well, the answer is, I don't know. I'm not really sure. We were told that pork could stay in there for 12 hours or longer. When I cooked the brisket this time, it stayed in the same length of time that the pork did, which was really about 13 hours. And it was still very tender, but it had really rendered down a little bit further than I would like to have seen it done. So we know better next time not to do that. So how do we address this? Well, I actually saw a video with one gentleman that has a pit similar to this, and he has a thermometer that he runs down under the lip, puts it down into the food, and then he just watches the thermometer, and when it gets to the temperature he wants it to get to, he pulls it out. That's an idea. I may actually try that. I think that's going to be a little more important when I'm doing something like a turkey. Hey, this is a trial and error experience. Cook and learn. Oh, look at that. Oh yeah. Wow. This is going to be delicious. Mm-hmm.
That bone's sticking out. That looks good. So what I did is I used gloves and I just pulled the bones out and I broke it up with the bones last time.
Look at that. The bones are like chipping away. It's so.
Yeah. Your dad just used the bones like it was forks.
Yeah. That's exactly what I did. Hot?
Yeah, it's cold.
There you go.
Juicy. Honestly. Alright. We need to go ahead and just
Look at those things break up.
We just need to go ahead and donate a pair of those heated gloves to Papa's house.
Wow. Did you see just how tender and juicy that pork was? It just falls off the bone. One thing that they mentioned was heat gloves. Now that's a heavy-duty rubber glove you can use to pull things apart. We use them, well, when pulling pork, or we use them at an oyster roast, for example, to grab the hot oysters and hold on to them while you open them. They come in really, really handy. Of course, you really could just get some tongs or some forks and pull the pork apart. It's that tender. You don't need to grab it. If you're wondering how the party went, well, it was a big success. We cooked 4 pork roasts, 2 with one seasoning, 2 with the other seasoning, and both were equally delicious. We had about 50 people over. Everyone loved it. The brisket, I kind of set it aside for use for us later. Well, that's it. Another successful project in the books. Hey, thanks again for watching, and questions and comments are always welcome. Please remember to like and share and subscribe, and I will see you next time on Keeping Up with Papa, Life After Work. Papa out.
Also, don't burn up my
Yeah, burn the end of that thing.
There you go. Alright, it's gonna pulsate dead, does that?
One thing mentioned was heat gloves. Those were heavy duty gloves you could use to grab something that's hot and pull it all apart. One thing that, all right. For serving. My God, I'm gonna get through this eventually. One more time. Oh, here it comes. So I put these on top as a solid surface. Oh, here it comes. Time to eat, and we couldn't continue to leave the... Let's try that again.